Welcome to the drill range, TKO. Sergeant Major Thumper here with a lesson on the Pattern Enfield 1853. Let's get started. The Pattern Enfield M1853 is the most commonly used rifle in the game. Most companies get this rifle, some don't, but most of them will have this rifle. This rifle, you start getting into marksman and sharpshooting. You're shooting the guys 300 yards away, which you'll probably never do actually in battle. But these are the rifles. This is one of the rifles that you would use to do something, of that nature when you're doing long range distance shooting out on the range for competitions, bragging rights, what have you. This is one of the rifles you would use. The Whitworth, um, the Mississippi, the Sharps carbine. All those will reach out and touch somebody. But in game, in battle, we typically don't ever engage anybody outside 150, 200 yards. So, making real long range shots with this rifle is just not going to be a thing in battle. You'll rarely ever use the elevated sights. I'll show you the elevated sights here in a little bit. The 1853 has a 57, it's 5.77 caliber. It's about half an inch in diameter, about the size of a nickel. It's a rifled musket, shoots mini balls. Um, this is not a smooth bore. It's actually got rifling in the barrel, so the bullet will spin when it comes out, which kind of keeps it straight, flying it don't veer off left or right like a smooth bore ball would. Well, let's get out on the range and see how this thing works. The 1853 is unique among other rifles because it has elevated sights. There's a handful of rifles that allow you to use the elevated sights. The 1853, the Whitworth, the 1855, and the 1861, I believe it is. Maybe it's just the 55. Anyway, they have elevated sights as well. This rifle has a max range of 1,000 yards. You'll never shoot at anybody at 1,000 yards. I doubt you could even see a dude at 1,000 yards. But the elevated sights are, if you hit the Z key, the Z key, or Z key, like they say in England, the Z key, it brings up an elevated sights. The first stage is zeroed at 300 yards. The second stage is zeroed at 500 yards. And the third stage is zeroed at 750 yards. And I don't have exact numbers from the devs. This is just what I figured out, being out here on the range, throwing rounds down range. This is just kind of my best guess as to what these different levels are. And this is what I would use. If I know the target's, 700 yards away, I'm going to use the third set. If I know it's, between 300 and 400 or 500 yards, I'm going to use the first one, so on and so forth. That's great and all out here on the range, hitting long range shots. It's really cool to impress your friends or to, freak out the unsuspecting. But in battle, you'll never shoot at anybody that far away. The average distances that you'll shoot anybody is going to be anywhere from 50 to 100 yards. The max is going to be 200 yards, and that's going to be rare. Most of the time, they're going to be 100 yards or closer. So keep that in mind when you're out here doing these marksman and sharpshooter things. It's really not going to mean a whole lot in battle. Occasionally, there's a couple of maps. I think maybe Burnside's Bridge. If you're on the CSA and you're standing on the CSA side of the bridge, there's an arty across the field. There's about 400 yards out. You can take pot shots at those guys if you want to. All right, so before we begin our regular exercises, I've come out here and I'm gonna throw some rounds downrange at long range. Now, I know the arty targets are in that direction, right? And I know they're about 450 to 550 yards, right? Knowing that, I can I could properly use my sight, right? So if I take my sight and I know that if the third set is 300 and the second set is 500, and I know that the target is just below the top of the corn, I can kind of gauge where those targets are going to be and where I need to be aiming to hit that shot. Let's take a look and see. So you can see, hitting long range, it's fairly easy with this rifle. If you know where the target is, how far away it is, know the settings of your gun, of your sights. It's not that hard to hit at long range. It's just the thing is, you're never going to shoot at them from that far away. You're never going to shoot at somebody more than 200 yards away. It's rare that you will. Um, if you're a crack shot like me, sometimes the officer will call on you, hey, so, shoot that guy up there on that rock or shoot that officer. He's over there scouting. And, you take a pot shot at him, but you might have to shoot him two or three times, but you can hit him with this rifle. It's not hard. As a matter of fact, you can hit it with any rifle. It's just a little easier with, say, the Sharps, the Pattern Enfield, the Whitworths, the Mississippi. It's just easier with those rifles because they are so accurate at long ranges. But let's start out at we're gonna go over here to 50 yards and throw some rounds down range and kind of get our aim zeroed in of where we need to be aiming to hit these guys. We'll work our way out to 100, then 150, and yeah, let's get started with that. All right, so we see at 50 yards, you're not really aiming at position 3. You see where my belt buckle is here. That's position 3. That's where you want to be aiming, kind of their belly button, a little bit above their belly button. That's position 3. All right. What you're actually doing, you're aiming at the baguette, right? You're aiming at the family jewels, their waisted and groin area, which is going to be like the bottom of the wood, bottom of the circle, that area at 50 yards. If you want to get kill shots, again, kill shots with chest area. If you want to hit the chest area, you're aiming, at their waist, between their belt and their waist. The belt's not worn on the waist; it's worn up right at the top of the belly button. But between there and the baguette, is kind of where you want to be aiming at 50 yards. Let's move out to 100 yards. Okay, at 100 yards, you can see that I'm still kind of aiming at the bottom of the target. Not really position 3, not really position 2, kind of in between. We'll call it position 2.5. But that's generally where you want to be. You aiming at the jewels. All right, at the groin area. Not necessarily position 3, like I said, at the belly. You're not aiming at the knees either. Kind of the thigh, waist, groin area. This is where you want to be aiming at 100 yards to get good kill shots. Let's move out to 150 yards. Close this out. All right. At 150 yards, you can see that I missed a couple of times. It was probably due to bad aiming on my part. But the ones I did hit, you saw that, I'm having to aim almost position 4 now, at the chest. to hit kill shots. You know, between 3 and 4, it's gone from 2.5 aiming at the family jewels to now I'm having to aim at the chest, and that was just a difference of 50 yards between 100 and 150 yards. So you know, at 150 yards, at 100 yards, you're aiming. You know, you're aiming at the waist, but at 150 yards, you're aiming at the chest. That's how much of a difference it goes from just, from 100 to 150. From 50 to 100, it wasn't that bad. You're almost aiming in the same place. But once you get out to 150, you got to start lifting that rifle up. That's why the Pattern Enfield has those elevated sights. It doesn't have as steep of a curve to it that the bullet travels in to get to the target. The Mississippi has a real steep curve to it. Well, the Pattern Enfield's got kind of a shallow curve to it. It needs those elevated sights to get the ranges that, are required for the rifle. The Mississippi doesn't need the elevated sights because it has such a high arc. That kind of explains the differences in the rifles, why some have elevated sights, some don't. It's due to that arc that the bullet has to travel between barrel and target, and the distance between barrel and target. I hope this video gives you something to think about, and I hope you learned something. I appreciate you guys watching, and let's go stack some bodies, y'all.